Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people just like you. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to talk about how she conquered chronic illness and made it through a toxic relationship and was ready to re-enter the dating world. However, things weren't exactly what they seemed. She's going to share with you how she figured it all out and how you could do the same. Please help me welcome Jen DeBeers. Good morning, Jen. How are you doing today? I feel like it's been forever since we actually saw each other.
Yeah, right. It's been years. I'm good. I'm hanging out in Florida. It's beautiful. It's gonna be in the 80s today, so I can't really complain. So, how are you?
I am well. It is not in the 80s. I am in Colorado. It is snowing. So we have a little bit of different weather happening. I do want to tell my favorite Florida story. It's not my favorite Florida story, but as you know, working with promotions and events all over the country, my favorite texts were the ones that I would get from my people in Florida who would say it was freezing, it was so cold out, and I would say, is it really cold or is it Florida cold? And they would laugh. They'd be like, it's Florida cold, it's 60, I don't know what to do. So is that you now as well? Are you turning into the Florida cold kind of person?
No, I mean, I think because I grew up in New Hampshire, and I lived that snow and that cold, and then I did a stint in Chicago for a little bit. No, like cold's cold. Now there is a difference between Colorado cold because you guys don't have the humidity. Like that humidity is really what it makes it like that dampness. So I feel like that makes it a little bit colder feeling. But no, I'm I like it when it gets in the 60s here, and everybody's pulling out their winter jackets, and I'm like, I haven't got a jacket. I haven't pulled my jacket out except for when I go to DC for work or whatever. And so no, I haven't gotten to that point yet, and I don't think I will. I've been here now 4.5 years, so it's but I like it. I do.
Right on. I'm glad you pointed out the Colorado cold is not the same, because I try to tell people that and they look at me as though I am crazy and trying to put some kind of sorcery on them, but it is accurate. It's just the same as Vegas isn't as hot. I mean, 100 is hot, but it's not as hot as North Carolina hot when you add in that humidity.
That humidity, man. Like I tell people that all the time. Because I go out to Phoenix and work and stuff, and they're like, oh my God, it's over 100 degrees. It's again, it's that dry heat. I mean, yes, it's hot, but you can't. And even here in where I live, because I'm right on the coast, to me, it's cooler here than when I lived in North Carolina, because we were in the middle of the state in that bowl, and it was more humid there. And I felt like when you're on the coast, you get more of that ocean breeze. So, because people are always like, oh, it's so humid in Florida. I don't know how you can live there. And I'm like, it was worse when I lived in North Carolina. Way worse.
I don't know how we survived that.
I don't know. I think we just, I don't know. I mean, I was like, I don't know if it wasn't that I didn't know any better, because I did, because I came from New Hampshire, but.
Right. Well, we both wised up. We got out of there. Not that there's anything wrong with North Carolina. For those of you who are there, it's just an amazing, beautiful place. I just can't deal with the humidity. So now that we have talked about the weather, just jumped right in with that, I would love it if you would tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to remember when you and I met. We met in promotion industry. I don't remember what year it was.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
So I'm still technically in that industry. I'm now in production at an agency called Red Peg. So I'm not on the road full time like I used to be. I do travel some, but I'm part of the building and the creating and then fixing when things break. Now, I actually am leaving for Tampa tomorrow to go do a site check and kind of make sure the tour is going okay. And let's see, I went to school for exercise sports science, which is now considered kinesiology. So I have that exercise background. I owned a personal training business for a long time. Now it's just a fitness apparel company. And I dabble in photography as well. And yeah, I've lived in Florida and it's amazing.
I love it. And I love the varied background because I have that too. So it always makes me feel better when I'm with another person that has done lots of things. So thank you for that. I want to touch just a minute before we get into what we're really going to talk about, which is some relationship drama with a capital D. I want to talk very quickly about you being a chronic illness, just badass warrior. And I know that could be an episode in itself, and maybe it will need to be an episode in itself. But I would love for you to talk briefly just about what life has been like for you in dealing with chronic illness, and then kind of, I don't want to say in beating it, but in beating it in being able to continue to live your life mostly the way that you want to live it.
Yeah, that was a huge adjustment. I mean, I've always been healthy. Like I've never had the flu ever in my life. The only issues I ever had really growing up were when I moved to North Carolina, I developed allergies. So I dealt with sinus infections. And in 2018, I got a really bad sinus infection. It wouldn't go away. And I was on 9 rounds of antibiotics over the course of 4 months, and then ended up having surgery. And then when I came off the antibiotics after surgery, I started having all these GI problems, and it just escalated. I got tested for bacteria, or, like bacteria infections and that kind of stuff. And, everything was coming back negative. But I mean, I was so sick. I lost like 50 pounds in 6 weeks. And so this was in May of 18. And then in July of 18, I was diagnosed with severe Crohn's disease, which, if nobody really knows, it's they call it IBD. It's an inflammatory bowel disease. And it's not the same as IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. And I was put on medication right away. I lost all my hair. I literally was bald. And I think I cried more about losing the hair than I did actually being diagnosed with the disease that I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. And I mean, it really changed my life because like I said, I was always a healthy person, and I was sick. Like I remember laying in my bed and being like, I don't think I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning. And I just remember saying to God, I'm like, you know what? I'm okay. If you're ready for me to come, like I'm miserable. I'm in pain. This sucks. I had no energy. Like I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, take a shower, and then have to take a nap before I could go to work. And it's been a learning thing, very big learning curve for me. I've had to change the entire way that I eat food. I've had to change the entire way that I exercise. I was squatting 250 pounds. Like I was contemplating being a bodybuilder at one point. And, now I'm like, I just want to be healthy. Like that's kind of my whole focus. Like you can actually see the seat of my spin bike behind me.
Mm-hmm.
I started working out at home. And I kind of luckily, I live in Florida, so I can go to Mayo Clinic, and they literally have a department that just deals with ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Like my doctors do not see anybody else. And I've read a lot of books. I actually have a naturopath doctor too. So like I'm a firm believer in taking Eastern medicine and Western medicine. Like let's take the best of both worlds and like let's combine them. And I went vegan for a while. I have since now reintroduced some very clean and healthier meats back into my diet. But I've kind of always been that person that my business was named Suck It Up Fitness, is named Suck It Up Fitness. So it's kind of always been my motto with anything. So I didn't want this to ever define me. But I also know a lot of people won't talk about it because it's embarrassing. It is. I mean, like if you get down to it, like we joke around, we make a lot of poop jokes around at my house, but like it is. I mean, there's times where I'm like, I've been in the bathroom all day long today. Like, you know, it's just it, but that's part of it. So it's been interesting. I'm not at a point where I can say it's a blessing, but blessings have come out of it. I have really learned my identity, and it's not in being that curly redheaded girl because I lost all that for a while, or being the fit person. Like everybody knew me as the fitness chick. Well, I didn't work out for a long time because I was so sick. So I've really had to, like, when you get stripped from everything that you know yourself to be, I really learned who I was as a person, and became incredibly comfortable with who I am as a person, and actually really liked who I am as a person. So that is one good thing that's come out of it. You know, I am what they consider in clinical remission. I was diagnosed with celiac back in May. So last year I started having problems again, and then all this testing and came back as celiac. So I've really just kind of, I take it one day at a time. You know, there's days you have good days, there's days you have bad days. I've not gone an entire week without ever having symptoms. And that's one thing I would like to now work towards. That's why I'm meeting with an ND. But I mean, for the most part, I'm living a new normal. And I hate when people say that because like everybody's talking about that with COVID and everything. But I mean, it was like pre-diagnosis Jen versus like post-diagnosis Jen. So, you know, it's just, and I have learned to give myself grace. I think that's the biggest thing. Like I always pushed myself really, really, really hard, no excuses. And now I listen to my body. I mean, I do push myself, but I also have really learned to listen to my body. Like, okay, nope, you can't do that today. Like, and it's okay. It's okay to rest. It's okay to say you can't do something. And I was never that person before that. So kind of where we're at now.
I feel like you just told a lot of my story as well. You know, we're very similar because I have a bladder disease, which also isn't fun to talk about and also can leave you in the bathroom all day. So I can totally relate to what you're saying. And I was the same type of person, very athletic, always pushed myself, and had to rediscover what I would be able to do and what would still be a meaningful and fun life for me. But I'm so glad that I did that because I feel like I spent some time, you know, giving myself a pity party. And then one day I decided I would not let it define me. I was not going to let the disease determine the path of my life. And it sounds like you did that pretty quickly and were able to make adjustments.
Well, I think part of it too, I was just in denial. Like when they told me I was diagnosed, I was like, no, I'm not. No, this is gonna be something else. And he's like, no, like for real. I'm like, no, I don't think so.
Not today. For those of you who are listening and not watching, I will say Jen has all of her beautiful hair back. It is gorgeous and amazing, but I can totally understand how that might have been devastating. Might be a harsh word. I don't know. You tell me.
Oh no, girl, it was like I can laugh at it now. But like, so I was on the road. Like, so this is like how crazy my mind is. As I was just like, okay, it's really not that bad. Really not that bad. It was really that bad. I should have been in the hospital. I should not have been working. I was on the road during all of this, and my hair was just coming out. I mean, I was filling up the entire toilet with my hair. And it got to the point because my hair is so curly that when it was falling out, it was just knotted. And so I was like, I just have to cut the rest of whatever is left off. And I just remember, so I'm on the road with two guys and they're guys. And so I send them a text message. I was like, so I'm losing my hair. I'm going to get the rest of it chopped off. Please don't tell me anything because I'm going to start crying. So it was like the big elephant in the room. And I just remember I'm driving one day and my coworker's in the passenger seat and I just like tears are just streaming down my face. And you can just tell he's like, this is really awkward. And then he puts his earbuds in and he's like this on his phone. um, so it was really devastating. I mean, especially as a female, and again, like I've always been known as the redhead. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, I mean, I get called on the street all the time. They're like, "Hey, red," which I hate, by the way, but you know what I mean? Like, it's something where you like, it's gone. And as a female, I mean, it was absolutely devastating. I mean, like, it was just, my mom, I remember her sending me, she was trying to be very supportive, and she sent me a text message about, well, let me see. And I'm like, I'm fucking bald. What do you want to see? And I'm sure she was like, oh my God, oh my God. So, and luckily I have a really good friend who actually makes wigs. And so she made me a wig. So then we all started joking around about my weave. And like, I literally had like 4 or 5 different wigs, and like joking around about like being a different person. And we actually played a trick on our clients. So until my wig was made, I was just wearing hats. And then
Hmm.
I had my wig made. And I just remember being on site because like they screwed my name up to begin with. Um, because I remember the client came up to me one day and she's like, "Hey, how come you're such a bitch?" And I was like, "I mean, can you be more specific? Because I mean, I know that I'm a pretty direct and blunt person, but can like I have a
How about an example?
example, please?" And she's like, "Well, every time I call your name, like you don't respond." I'm like, "Well, what name are you calling?" And they're like, "Jess." And I was like, "Well, that's because that's not my name." And she's like, "Wait, are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, like that's not my name." I was like, "It's another white girl name though from the 80s. It's another one." Um, so the running joke was like they would all just call me a different name. So when I got my wig, we decided to play a joke on them and just say, "Hey, by the way, Jen quit. This is Tiffany." And they fell for it for like a couple hours. And then they finally were like, "Wait a second." I was like, "Yo, how did you guys like not?" I'm like, "Hey, man, you guys really just don't pay attention to you." So yeah, that was kind of like the running joke. And it was fun for a while. I don't know how people do it all the time because that thing was hot. Like
Hmm.
I hot and sweated really bad. And then, once it started growing out more, and I had it to like, like in my ears or whatever, is kind of when I stopped wearing my wig. And then also living in Florida and it being 80 degrees plus, it was hot. It was really
Yeah,
hot.
that would be a lot. That would
Yeah.
be that would be a lot. So, a lot of people in that situation where you go through something that is so traumatic as
Mhm.
losing your hair that kind of affects how you feel as a woman, that could lead you into a place of accepting things in relationships that maybe you normally wouldn't.
Yeah.
So, will you talk about going into relationships or dealing with relationships after going through this experience and what that's been like for you?
Um, so I kind of have, I'd say, let me back up a little bit. So about 6 years ago, I was in an incredibly toxic relationship. And he was a Marine and had a lot of mental problems, suicidal, manic, to name a few things. And it was long distance. So, it kind of made things, I didn't see a lot of the behavior or like upfront because it was long distance. And after we broke up, I kind of like did this self reflection. I was like, what is it in me that keeps attracting this type of man? Because it wasn't the first time I'd been with somebody who was a sex addict. And I mean, like, we're talking, he hired prostitutes to hide him in closets so he could watch live porn, because regular porn was not cutting it anymore. Like, we're talking like real deep in it. And I was like, I gotta do some healing, like something, God, like I gotta. So I did. I took like 2 years off from dating, and then I got sick. So kind of really hadn't dated a lot, and I kind of made the decision I would get back out there, back in November. And my job changed now that I'm home more, so I can establish something. Um, and I've always, like, I know a lot of people don't talk about their chronic illnesses, right up front. Like, I'm very upfront with it because
Mhm.
I get it. Like, some people just can't deal with it. I mean, or they can't handle it. like for me, I can't be with somebody who is an addict or an alcoholic, because my father was an alcoholic and my brother was an alcoholic and an addict, and both of them are no longer here anymore. And I realized probably about a year or so ago that those are triggers for me. And it's not a judgment against anybody who is recovering. Like I will give them as much support, but I know I can't be with somebody who is that, because it's a trigger for me. And I think like really kind of knowing your triggers. And again, that's that self-reflection, and it's not an easy path for healing. I'm going to tell you that now. I grew up in a very abusive household. I was sexually abused by my father and my brother as a child. And so that really, that's part of the reason I think I dated such horrible men, because I had such a horrible self-image of myself. And, the healing process is rough and it's long, but it's worth it 100%. So I've always been pretty honest and open about that too. Because again, like there's triggers for everybody. And, and some people are like, oh, I'm not damaged by any means. Like I'm healed. There are certain things that might, trigger me, but I've now learned, what some of those are, and I have coping skills for that. So, I tell people a lot, like your trauma probably wasn't your fault. Unfortunately, your healing is, and it's your responsibility. And so, I started putting myself back out there. And I'm Christian. And I am very heavily involved with my church, and I very talk to God a lot. And when I started dating, I was like, okay, God, like I need you to give me discernment, because I have not made very good decisions in this whole man department before. So please give me some discernment, give me wisdom in these areas. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people, especially online, hide behind their screens and make themselves look better. It's also it's an easier way for predators, I think, to have better access to humans. So, you do have to be weary of that, but I also never wanted to be jaded either. Yes, I've been cheated on. Yes, I've dated horrible people. But there's bad people in this world. Like, and I didn't want to be jaded. I don't want to be alone for the rest of my life. I'm content with being single. But I have a desire in my heart that I don't want to be. So I started dating again, and I met a guy, and he checked off most of the things, so we had good chemistry, we went out to lunch, and he was very respectful of the celiac and like let me pick a place. And we had really good conversations. Like we talked on the phone like probably 2 or 3 times before we even met, for like 2 or 3 hours each. And everything seemed to be, going pretty well. He had a kid. So that was, one thing that I knew I wasn't going to be a priority. And I understand that. Again, I don't have children and I've never been married, but I do know that, you have a child with another person, like that child is a priority. And if I can see, like looking back on things, I mean, we dated for about 4 months. We saw each other maybe about once a week, sometimes twice. Sometimes we go 2 weeks without seeing each other, just because like my travel schedule with work just picked up in the past like 6 weeks. So I think too, when you don't spend a significant amount of time with someone, like it's easy to hide your bad traits. And I've kind of always been a person where I feel like I over exaggerate my bad qualities. Like I tell people like, yo, I'm an asshole. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like I am. So that's why when that lady was like, the client goes, why are you such a bitch? And I'm like, well, I mean, like, could you give me an example?
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong, but like I'd like to know the context of this one, okay? So like I tend to try and, because I know I'm very self-aware. I know my flaws. Like I'm stubborn, I'm hard-headed, I'm very blunt. I sometimes speak too bluntly to people. and maybe not, it comes from a place of love, but it comes across sometimes a little harsh. Obviously, suck it up. So, I but I think a lot of people, it's easy if you, especially if you don't spend a lot of time like at one time with someone, they can hide their bad qualities. And like my father was like that with my mom. She was in a very bad emotional place. Her first husband had cheated on her and left her for another man. And my father was a predator and came in and told her everything she wanted to hear, like, we're going to be a family. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to raise your son the way, that he needs. I'll be his father, we'll be a happy family, and, just all the things. And they got married within 3 months, and then shit hit the fan. Because you can't hide your true nature for very long. And with this guy, I saw glimpses of things. Like I saw glimpses of the anger that like just like simmering underneath, but he would like rein it back in. And I mean, I have a temper. I'm obviously a redhead, and I also, like, my father was an alcoholic, and I kind of have a little bit of his temper. So like I know that. So like when I get mad, really mad, takes a lot. But when I get really mad, like I know I need to take a step back. I'm going to blow up. I'm going to say some things that are probably going to hurt somebody's feelings. Like, so I'm like, okay, well, like he's reining it in. Okay. But again, it was just one of those things, like I was observing. And, looking back on it, like I definitely felt like he was trying to groom me. He would say things like, I'm the nicest guy you've ever dated. You're not used to somebody treating you this well. And I'd be like, well, but like, are you though? Like, I was like, well, action, instead of you saying it, like actions are
right.
And it's like telling somebody, oh, I'm a really nice person. Like I'm really trustworthy. Like, but shouldn't I be the one to judge that? Like, why are you telling me instead of like proving? I'm confused by this. So, and there was a lot of conversations several times. He's like, I don't think you're emotionally ready for a relationship. And I was like, nah, dude, I am. Like, again, we're getting to know each other. Like I'm guarded. We've both been hurt in the past. Like, obviously he told me he'd been married. So like, yeah, I'm going slow and getting to know you. And he seemed okay with it. Up until, let's see. So he went on a cruise. He told me he won a cruise before we started dating. And so he was going on a cruise. And at first I was kind of like, by yourself? And he said, yes. And I was like, okay, all right. You've not really given me a reason to believe that you've lied. But I started questioning things. And to kind of back up a little bit too, like there was a lot of drama that happened. His father got really sick and passed away while we were dating. Like we'd only been dating a month ish. And his dad was in the hospital. I was there. So like, so, there was like almost like this, I felt like maybe he had more of an emotional connection to me because I was with him through that, and not that I didn't like him or didn't care about him, because I did. I just I felt like maybe his feelings were a lot stronger towards me than mine were at that point. And excuse me. Yeah, so the whole cruise thing was just kind of strange to me. He's like, I'm gonna go get a rental car to drive, because he was going out of Mobile, Alabama, instead of driving his truck. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But he was like, well, then I'm going to drop it off there, so I don't have to pay for parking, and then I'm going to pick it up. And I was like, well, there's like a $250 drop fee. He's like, no, there's not. I was like, yeah, dude, like I rent cars. Like I literally travel for a living. Like
on the daily, I rent cars. Like I know.
Unless you have a corporate account, which I do for work, you have to pay that drop fee. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to argue with you about this. Like, I'm just, okay. Then he was like, okay, I'm getting ready to go pick up this rental car. It was like 8 p.m. And I was like, are you going to the airport? And he was like, no. And I was like, I don't know a single rental car agency that's open past 6 p.m. unless it's at the airport. Well, the one by me is. And I was like, but is it though? Like, I was like, okay, all right, well, whatever. So he goes on this trip. I don't really hear from him a lot. Like, he doesn't call me the whole drive, which I thought was strange. I called him to make sure he got up because he said he was leaving at 3 a.m. He didn't answer his phone. I was like, okay. He texted me when he got there, said he got there, sent me a couple of pictures. Didn't hear from him most of the trip. He said he was at sea, didn't have cell signal. Okay, got a couple of pictures, here and there, a couple texts, like when he would get signal when they got to Mexico. And then, he comes back and he's got another drive. And he's like, okay, I'm driving back. And he didn't call me, which is weird because we talked on the phone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So then he calls me when he gets back into Jacksonville. And he was like, yeah, I guess I should have called you on the way back, but I was just so focused on picking up my son that, And I was like, it was a 6-hour drive, but okay, again, whatever. Maybe you're preoccupied. Like, there's times where I don't feel like talking on the phone. So like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I was kind of like, I had this weird feeling. Like, I was just like, something's not right. And over the weekend, like, even our text conversations just weren't normal. Like, I would always, always send me a good morning, beautiful text message or, rise and shine. I didn't get those. And I just thought that was weird. So I asked him. He was like, no, I'm just tired. Okay. So then come Monday, he was like, I finally was like, yo, so what's up? Like, something's going on. Like, my gut is telling me something is wrong. No, everything's fine. I just had to take my son to school. I got busy with work and, Work. All right. We're sending memes back and forth. So it seems kind of sort of normal. And then I get hit with a text like that night. It was like, hey, so I've been doing a lot of thinking. This is on my chest. I just feel like I can't wait another 3 to 6 months for you to be ready to be fully in a relationship. And I was like, what? Like 2 weeks ago, you told me you would wait a year. Like, I was the person, I was the one you wanted to be with forever. And you were willing to wait a year until I was ready to tell you that I loved you, because he had dropped that bomb on me, 2 weeks before. So I was like, I really feel like I deserve a conversation. Like,
this is not a text. Yeah.
This isn't a text. You're 40 years old. Like, this isn't a text message. And I called, he sent me straight to voicemail. And I was like, okay. So then I was like, look, man, like, you've really hurt me. Like, you've broken my heart. I deserve better than this. I deserve a conversation about this like an adult. And his response was, I just really need to focus on my son and my relationship with God. I've been doing a lot of praying. Like, I did miss you while I was gone, but I just really like the peace while I was gone. And I just need to focus on being single right now. I was like, okay, you just contradicted yourself.
Right.
I'm not going to argue with you. Like, I'm not going to beg you to be with me. Like, and it was weird because I had this like whole, I would say, struggling a little bit this weekend or the weekend prior about like, okay, like, is this the relationship I'm supposed to be in? Can I please have some wisdom? Because like, I feel like I go back and forth. Like, I was like, something is just not, I don't know. Like, I couldn't put my finger on it, but just something wasn't right. Like, for some reason, I was like, after 4 months, I still feel guarded. I still feel hesitant. And so I was on the phone with one of my friends because I texted her. I was like, yo, so you just broke up with me over text message. And like, she's like, did you ever Google him? And I was like, nope, I sure didn't. She's like, maybe you should Google him. And I'm like, all right. So I Google him. And up pops, there's a record. I'm like, all right, well, look, I got a record. Like, all I got is you. Like, and that's the thing. Like, he and I had a whole conversation about like, had we ever been arrested before? Because like, I've been arrested. It's a hilarious story. So I had expired tags and had a cop come behind me and pulled me over, and I had expired tags and wrote me a ticket and was like, all right, register your car and you'll be good to go. I was like, all right, cool. That's what I did. Well, apparently I was supposed to show up to court. I didn't. Bench warrant. Well, apparently that never got mailed or got lost in the mail because I never got it. Fast forward 4 years later, get a cop behind me running my tags again. And he's like, hey, there's something coming out of Guilford County. Because I was in Charlotte at the time. And he's like, I gotta take you in. I was like, take me in where?
Where are we going?
Going? He's like, I gotta take you to jail. And I was like, wait, what? So yes, like I've been there. Okay. And I'll be honest, I had a lead foot when I was growing up. Sorry, my work computer is going crazy. And I had a lead foot. I got a lot of speeding tickets when I was younger. Like, I ain't gonna lie about that. So I was like, okay, well, everybody, like whatever. So I looked it up, and it is bad. It is bad. Like, so that he told me he was in the military, and he started 4 tours. He did 2 tours in Afghanistan and 2 tours in Iraq. He told me that he got medically discharged because he got shot in an ambush and was basically paralyzed for a couple months after having surgery and everything. They didn't think he was going to walk again. He recovered, but he couldn't be in the military anymore. And came home, went to college. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth because I couldn't find an actual record of him being in the military, although I had seen medals and I saw a certificate that he won an award while being in the military.
You can buy that shit online. Keep going.
I sense that too. However, the first arrest was in 2003. So if he had been in the military, he got discharged early because I know military. My family's military. I've dated military a lot. You don't sign anything less than a 4-year contract.
Right.
And the earliest he could have gone in was in 2000. So the first arrest was 2 grand theft felony charges in 2003 and 2 soliciting prostitution charges in 2003. And he went to prison for like a year. Like 2003 to 2004. So like you obviously weren't overseas fighting in Iraq or Afghanistan. So now I'm pissed because like I've got a lot of friends in the military. My brother was military. Like they all fought, and like now you're doing stolen valor, homie. Like okay. And then like I start thinking, I'm like, I saw him shirtless. Like I know what shrapnel looks like. Never saw a scar. I know what bullet holes look like. Never saw a scar. And I was like, that was probably a lie. So I'm like, what else? Well, he told me he had been arrested. And I think he told me stuff enough that I wouldn't go digging. Like he told me he had been arrested, that it was a miscommunication with his ex-fiance, that she was dealing drugs and he found them. Someone came to the house to buy drugs. He pulled a gun on them. She flipped out, called the cops. He got arrested because of assault with a deadly weapon. And then had told me he'd been married once. He's been married twice. And these charges literally start in 2003. And the most recent one was 2001 with his ex-wife, and it was an assault charge. I mean, she dropped the charges, but it was assault. And that was like most of all of them there was a couple felony assault charges. And I really started doing a lot of thinking, and I was like, yep. The signs were there, and that's, I think, the difference between maybe someone who is a violent abuser, who like literally just can't control their temper and lashes out and beats people up, and then it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I did that, versus an actual sociopath. And in my opinion, he is an actual sociopath. And it's that calculating, it's the manipulation. And that's how my father was. My father is a definition of a sociopath. And like I said, the conversations that we had were him saying, I don't think you're emotionally ready for a relationship. I'm like, no, I am. I'm just cautious. Like, and you're just not used to somebody treating you this well. And I think had I maybe the old me, like 5 or 6 years ago, I'd be like, you're so right. Like, you're the best thing. Like, absolutely. And I'm like, let's see these actions a little bit better. And, like I said, I saw the glimpses of the anger here and there. I definitely saw it with the dog. like with his dog.
Oh
And
no. Mm-mm.
yeah, I so like he has a little dog, and I used to have Yorkie, so like I get a lot of them have social anxiety, and a lot of them like those little dogs they shake and stuff, and so like
Mm-hmm.
he brushed it off as like she has social anxiety and everything. And there was the last day that the last night I actually saw him. I came over and he was outside with the dog, and I just saw him like kind of pick up the dog and kind of throw her, and I was like, because she does this shit all the time. She'll just go and sit in the yard thinking that if she just sits there, I can take her for a walk. That's not how this is going to go today. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, that's literally like, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not okay with this.
Right.
And, you know, we had gone out, I mean, we went out to eat several times, and like just some of the ways that he would talk to like the waiters, the waitresses. We were at Panera one day, and I was ordering, you know, a salad, and I said, you know, I have celiac disease. I can't have anything gluten, like, and so she's like, okay, okay. And then she's like, do you want your side? Do you want a baguette? Do you want an apple or some chips? And I was like, well, let's go with an apple. And he goes, what part of her being gluten-free do you not seem to understand? And I was like, oh, it's really not that serious. Like, I just need you to, you know, he didn't want me to go to the funeral with it for his father. He told me it was because his ex-wife was really nasty and very territorial, and they would just not be a good situation. Him and his sister didn't go along. His sister abused him as a kid, like, you know, tied him up and put him in closets and beat him. She's older. And there was a lot of bad blood, I guess. And his sister disappeared after their mother passed away in 2011. And now just came around that his father passed away because she just wanted money and insurance money. And, you know, at first I was like, oh, okay. But then after I did all this digging, I was like, okay. So I started doing some digging on Facebook and found his sister. And it's funny because if she hadn't talked to her father in 12 years, her father's profile picture was a picture of him and the daughter, and she was kissing his cheek from 2021. So, like, really? I hadn't been around. But funny thing is that neither one of them were friends with him on Facebook. So, I don't know. I just was like, this is it. Like, I see how people get, and this isn't judgment by any means, but like I see how people get entrapped in that. I mean, because they don't come right out all of a sudden and just beat the shit out of you. Like
right.
It's just that slow, you know, that slow progression. And I'm very grateful that, you know, nothing ever happened. Like I had a lot of like, oh my God, like I was alone with him. Like we went hiking. I was alone with him out on a trail. Like you know, we'd gotten a hotel because it was like 3 hours away. And I was like, I've been alone with this guy. Like, holy crap. You know, I think part of it was also that he knew I was always armed. And I'll be honest, I'm a huge advocate of any woman getting her CCW, especially in this day and age. You just don't know. And I always have a knife on me, but I always have my pistol. And I also inadvertently elbowed him in the eye and gave him a black eye at one point. So I had fallen asleep, and he like went to kind of like grab me to like cuddle, like, and I don't know, instinct just kicked in, and I was dead asleep and went bam. Gave him black eye. He was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm like, but you also probably shouldn't do that to an abuse victim. Like, you know, so I think what happened was that he realized that I couldn't be manipulated. Either that, or he found an easier mark. Is kind of what I'm suspecting. I don't think he went on that cruise by himself at all. I don't really know any man that goes on a cruise by himself.
And nobody wins a free cruise for one.
Yeah, well, he told me that they asked me if he wanted one person or two, and he said one. So again, like, you hate to be judgmental or critical of what, because he really hadn't given me a reason
Right.
up until then. But again, looking back on like conversations that we had, I'm like, yep, that didn't add up right either. Or that wasn't so. And it was like, it's embarrassing. I'll be honest with you. Like, I was super embarrassed by it. I was pissed, super pissed. But I just remember, like, I was praying about it, and I just remember God saying, like, you really do need to talk about this. And I was like, why? It's embarrassing. And it was like, it's not for you. And I was like, okay. So that's why I made that post on Facebook. And again, I talk about the Karens and the Neils and everything about, I don't need your comments or whatever. And I've had a couple people backlash a little bit about, like, oh, well, Jen, maybe you shouldn't be so judgmental. People change. And I was like, obviously you didn't read this whole post. And I also didn't go into everything that happened, but like, he flat out lied. Like, I asked him, like, have you been arrested before? Like, it's not like I'm not I'd say I'm a very understanding person. Like, I get it. People have past. Like, I used to bartend at a strip club. Like, come on now. Like, I hung out with drug dealers. Okay. Like, I'm not this squeaky clean little Christian girl, but I'm also very honest and open about,
right.
Who I was and who I am now. And it's just that the deceitfulness, like, again, he told me just enough probably that I wouldn't go digging. And just like the cold way, like, so I got pissed off the day after and sent him a text message and was like, so was anything that you ever said to me an actually true? Because I'm looking at your rap sheet and it's really long. And his response back was, haha, yes, everything I said was actually true, just like how I don't have feelings for you anymore. And I was like, that's kind of a dick move.
Right.
And he's like, now stop texting me. And I was like, all right, homie. Like, so I don't know. I mean, I've never been in this situation before. I mean, I obviously dated, like, I've been in toxic relationships, but that was more like they had some type of addiction or, mental illness. Like, this to me was just absolutely sociopathic behavior. Like, no real remorse. Like, I don't really think, like, did he ever, like, sociopaths can't love. Like, they really can't. Like, they get satisfaction, but that's about it. And so, like, I think that's the thing. Like, he said the things that he thought I wanted to hear. And 5 years ago, yeah, that probably would have worked with me. And obviously it's worked before because he's been married twice. But, I think the biggest thing too is like just warning signs. And I think as women, we ignore our gut. Like, we're like, oh, we don't want to seem crazy. Oh, we don't, because
I don't want to be a bitch. I don't want to seem bitchy.
Yeah. Or like, and like I said, I've dated guys before and my gut was like, hey, something's not right. This dude's cheating on you. I'm like, oh no, Jen, don't jump to conclusions. Oh no, guess what? He was screwing half of America. Like, literally. Like, oh, should have listened to the gut. So like, I feel like we do ignore it a lot. And that was kind of where I was at. I was like, all right, this is what my gut is saying, but is it because I've been hurt in the past, or is it like absolutely true? And it was true. And I feel like as women, we really need to, God gave us that intuition, like 100%. And I truly believe that we downplay it a lot. And again, because we don't want to seem crazy, we don't want to come across as a bitch, we don't want to come across as like the sleuthing, like being, oh, you don't trust me. Why were you hiding? Like, that's kind of like anybody that gets mad at you for like doing some research because it's your own safety, like themselves, basically, is the way I feel. Like, it's because the people that are going to get mad are the ones that are obviously hiding something. Like, look at my background. Like, I literally will tell you everything that happened. Like, I'm not, and again, it's about being honest and open as opposed to, again, hiding things. And especially for females, like, we, in this day and age of, I mean, I know that you're married, and like, I don't know if you ever did the whole online dating thing before you got married, or like had any experience with that.
Thank
But like,
God, no.
girl, it's rough out in these streets. Let me tell you, like, I don't go to bars. Like, I mean, I don't drink. So, and I'm not really a bar person.
Mhm.
And then with the traveling and stuff, like, I haven't made a whole lot of friends here.
Right.
And so I was like, well, how am I going to meet people? You
Mhm.
know? And so like, that's kind of like the way you do things now. But like,
Right.
I also watch a lot of Catfish, and I'm like, yo, there's some
Mm.
shit. Like, first of all, I ain't got time for all that. Like, how are you keeping up with all of these lies? And like,
Yes.
I just, I can't be bothered with it. Like, so, I've really, like, this is hilarious actually. So I was like, all right, did some self-check stuff. I'm like, okay, am I upset because I caught feelings and I was
Mhm.
falling in love with this guy, and I need to take some time to like heal from this? Or
Mhm.
am I just upset because I feel betrayed? And
Right.
I was like, yeah, no, I just feel betrayed. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna put myself back out there. So I decided to create a new Match account
Nice.
and started talking to this guy. He tells me right off the bat that he's an alcoholic. And I was like, okay. So I told him, I was like, I'll
Mm.
be honest with you. That's concerning to me because I come from an alcoholic family. It is a trigger for me, but I'm not going to completely write you off. I appreciate you being honest with me, but I'm telling you,
Mm.
like, this is me. Well, he tells me he's got a thing for redheads. I hate when people say that to me. Like, it really drives me nuts.
It's
Like,
just weird and creepy. I
it is
feel
weird and
like.
creepy. Like, I don't have a thing
Mm.
for people with black hair. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
like, that's just so weird.
Mhm. Mhm.
She's like, oh, my ex-wife has red hair, and my ex-girlfriend has red hair. So he gives me his phone number. So I'm like, oh yeah, man, I paid for all the things. I'm doing all this stuff. Like, no, we ain't playing this game. So I go and find him. Ex-wife doesn't have red hair. I'm like, okay, well, I'm one, but okay. I find him on there, and like most of the stuff he posted, it's kind of what he told me. Well, he sent me a friend request. I'm like, I'm not accepting a friend request. So then he sends me a text message like 2 hours later and was like, hey, so I sent you a friend request. I saw, like you came up on people I may know. It's probably because of your phone number. And I'm like, actually, it's not, because my cell phone number is not registered on Facebook. It's a Google Voice number for those reasons.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, so I saw that post you did about that guy. And I was like, yeah, because I'm really sorry that happened to you. And I was like, yeah, man, there's some shady people in this world. So I had to let you know. I live in a Hathaway house. And I know that that's really not ideal, and I really can't offer you anything. I'm like, I mean, I'm glad. I'm like, I'm leaving that post up. Like,
Yes.
yo, meet some people. Like, I was like, first of all, it doesn't come up on your background check.
Mm.
Did you live in a Hathaway house? Like, that doesn't pop. Like, if you run a background on somebody, and I'm using two different sites. I think it's called My Life is one of them,
Mhm.
and then Been Verified is the other one.
Mhm.
Been Verified is the one that Catfish uses. And it comes back like arrests, liens, like that kind of financial
Mhm.
stuff. And then if you have anything like social media, or like your phone number that's registered to you, social media stuff, and work history. And that's mostly comes from like, I think LinkedIn. So like if you have a LinkedIn account, it'll pull
Right.
that normally. That's really that comes back. But I just thought it was hilarious that he was like, so I have to let you know, I live in a halfway house. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, what are you doing on a dating site if you live in a halfway house?
Right. Like, bro,
Isn't
you
that
need to
against
work
the
on
rules?
you right now.
Right? Like, get you-
And yeah, that's
right? So
I
I was like, well, like, good. I'm gonna leave it up. Like, go ahead and find me on Facebook and read that post, because I am running your stuff.
right. You are getting found out by
Yes.
this one. And
Yes.
I love that you're doing that. I love that you put the post up and that you're leaving it up and that it's working.
Yes.
That
I
is
know, right?
fantastic. That's my favorite. And I agree with you. I've always been the person that said, and I'm saying this on a surface level. I don't want to get into the whole like our right to privacy and all that stuff. But like I've
Right.
always said, you know what? If the cops stop me and want to search my car, have at it. Like, please don't keep me too long and put everything back where you found it. But like, I have nothing to hide. That's the point. Like, again, I'm
Yeah,
not getting into the whole
right. Agree.
privacy and freedom, whatever. But like, what I'm saying is, yeah, I don't have anything to hide. So have at it because it's fine. Generally, what you said is correct. The people who have everything to hide are the ones who are like, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't look me up on Been Verified. You shouldn't Google search me. You don't trust me. What's going on? And those are the people that we should really be worried about.
Right. Right. Like, I mean, again, yeah, I think you and I kind of feel the same way about the whole,
Yes.
thing and, like, your rights and everything. I understand that too. But, we do live in an information, like, we get bombarded by so much information and everybody's got social media stuff and like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody tries to portray themselves as the best version, or even like not even them. Like I said, I mean,
Right.
catfish has literally been on the air for like 10 years. Like people still
So
out there
long.
catfishing.
People
Like,
are still doing it.
I know.
I
Girl, I was watching an episode this morning before I went and got my rental car. Like it's
it's
insane to me. But
insane.
and it's sad that we have to do that. But there's crappy people in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And they take advantage of people, and like that's the biggest thing. Is like I don't want women to feel like their voice isn't heard, or that they're alone in this. Like after I posted this, I can't tell you how many comments are on that thread that like, oh my God, this happened to me and this happened to me. And wow, man, like first of all, women and men need to raise your boys better.
Right.
Like,
Right.
And I feel like that's a huge thing with it, is that there's just such a huge brokenness in the family, that's now creating these males. I wouldn't even call it man.
Right.
These males. And there's obviously something broken in a person who beats women. Like,
yes.
And that's what he was. I mean, looking at that record, like if all those assault charges were on women. So like, I'm grateful that it was never me. Now, I will be honest, like had something ever happened, I would have shot him. Like 100%. Right. It would have happened. I live in Florida, so we have standard ground. But there is something in you that is broken, that you think that's okay. And like the behavior too, the difference is with a sociopath is that they'll apologize because they know that that's what they're supposed to do, but they don't feel sorry. They don't feel remorse, but they'll like flip it and say, I'm really sorry I hit you, but had you not pressed this button, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah. So it's your fault that I can't control my rage in my fists.
I'm sorry you made me hit you. It is what it ends up. Exactly. We have like 7 more episodes to do, because you hit on so many things that I want to talk about. The first being the stolen valor, because I say former relative because I let that person go from my life, but who did that to a girl. He claimed to do all these tours in, I think his was Afghanistan. The shrapnel thing that you said, there must be a handbook somewhere that's like
a blog, like, hey, this is how, especially like, and I feel like they profile you on your, because like I am open, because again, I support the Second Amendment. I'm very much, I believe in what the Constitution says, and I'm open about that on my profile, because I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, well, we don't like guns. I'm like, yeah, well, so when I meet you, I'm gonna have one. So
right.
I'm gonna throw that out there. So I think it was almost like, oh yeah, she's pro-military, she's pro-gun, like, okay, let me say these things that makes me look like a hero. And
I want to find that blog, because somewhere, yes, there's the blog that tells them what to say. I mean, this kid would wear patches on his hat that had blood on them that he claimed was the blood of his friend that died in his arms.
So yeah, almost not patches of blood, but like, yeah, it's almost the same story.
Yeah,
But like,
like,
boy, like, whoo, girl,
so
let me tell you how that gets me mad. Like,
yeah,
especially coming from a military family.
yes,
Like, because war's no joke. Like, I'm
right.
it's necessary. But it fucks people up. And their lives up,
Mhm.
their psyche up. Like, I've read a lot of books on, like, who was it? Howard, I think it's Howard Wasden. He
Mhm.
was on the original SEAL Team 6. He
Mhm.
was on the Black Hawk Down mission. And he talks about like that first time you take someone's life and how like you are not right, like moving like from that day on. And
Right.
for someone to like
To make
just
it up.
I know it's that I think
It's
that's the biggest thing I think that has anchored me
mhm.
the most out of this whole situation, as opposed to like,
Mhm.
being lied to and manipulated and everything. Like that part of it is like disgusting to me.
It is
Absolutely
disgusting.
disgusting.
So that's gonna be another episode because I
Okay.
think we can spend an hour
Oh
just
yeah.
on that. I would love to ask you, I think I know what it might be, but throw out a piece of relationship advice for let's just throw it out for the ladies out there.
Trust your gut for sure. And if you feel like you need to do the research, like I know that those sites are not cheap.
Mhm.
I mean, you spend $120 or $130, but like, what is your life worth?
Mhm.
And I develop, especially if you're doing online dating, like develop a um like a checklist with, like my phone now. And that's mostly because I travel too, but like, you let somebody know where you're going to be, what
Mhm.
time. Like I'll even be like, hey, so this is that person's phone number. If you don't hear back from me, like
Mhm.
this is that person's phone number. Um, my location, so like my mom can look on her phone to see where my last known location is. Um, and again, ask questions. Like be like just don't automatically, oh well, like we're not that far along yet, so maybe I shouldn't ask that type of question. Like no, ask the questions. That's one, how you get to know somebody. And trust your gut. Like
Mhm.
if you have that small feeling that something's not right, it, you're 100% correct. Like and
Mhm.
hands down, every time I've ignored my gut, I have ended up completely heartbroken. And luckily it was just heartbreak as opposed to my life or being
Mhm.
injured. And I think that's definitely, I would say, my advice. Don't get jaded. I mean, I know there's some crappy people out there for sure. But there are some really good ones out there too. And I know it's hard to not get jaded, especially like I'm 38 years old and never been married. And but also know your worth. Like
Mhm.
really, really know your worth. And I think that like having, and it's not being stuck up. Like that's,
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing, that like some people think, oh well, you're just stuck up. Like no, I just know my worth. Like I know that I am valuable. I know how I should be treated.
Mhm.
And if I'm not going to be treated that way, then I don't want to be in that relationship. And I think a lot, especially society now, it's gotten to the point where a lot of things have gotten watered down. And I think, people settle, and
Mhm.
I'm not willing to settle, period. Like I'll stay single for the rest of my life. I refuse. Cause like I dated somebody for off and on for 10 years from the age of 18 till I was
Mhm.
28. And it was a really toxic relationship. And had we ever gotten married, we'd be divorced now. So, um, and I'm definitely not negating
Mhm.
anybody who has gone through a divorce or anything, but again, knowing your worth and knowing
Mhm.
what you deserve, I think is a big, big factor in the standard of men that you're willing to go out with, I guess is probably the best way to put that.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Nice.
So we are going to take a quick turn here because we have talked about some pretty heavy stuff. So
Okay.
we're going to wrap up with some tattoo talk because, as you know, I love tattoos. I have a lot of tattoos. I don't know what my next tattoo is going to be. I have some ideas, but I would love to hear about your favorite tattoo that you have.
Um, okay, so it's probably my most recent one that I got in December. It's my entire back.
Nice.
It's Cape Hatteras. So lighthouses have a huge symbolism in my family. My grandfather used to eat lunch at the Barnegat Lighthouse
Mm-hmm.
a lot when he was working. And we kind of started getting him these light up like figurines, or we got them at like Hallmark, but they were like this big, and it's like all the different lighthouses in the US. And so that was kind of like a thing we did for birthdays and Father's Day and Christmas for him. And when he passed away in 2015, I think there was 9 of them. They divided them up between the 3 children, and then basically, so my mom got one. She gave one to my brother and one to me. So lighthouses has just kind of been like a huge symbolism in our house. And I lived in North Carolina, so hence the Hatteras. And also the Barnegat Lighthouse is not the most aesthetically pleasing. It's like plain white. So I was like, that's not going to really look great as a tattoo. And then my faith is very important to me. So I have an anchor
Mm-hmm.
in it with some waves, and then a compass. And, for the symbolism of, God being my guide and my anchor. And so that's probably my favorite one. And I'm already thinking about number 6 already. So
How long did your back take?
the first session was 5 hours. And then the second session was, I think, 5 hours.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. So he did most of all the outlining, and then he did a little bit of the shading for the first session. And then he had another appointment. So we had to wrap things up. And then the second session, he was planning on doing it the whole day. And he was like, yeah, you're starting to get a little swollen with all the shading and everything. So I have one more appointment I have to do. And we're just going to add a little bit of blue and just do make sure everything is good. But so yeah, right now I think we're at like 10 hours.
Nice.
So
Love it. Well, I need to see that. So
okay.
I want to see pictures of that.
Okay.
Well, Jen, where can people find you? So if they want to buy some workout gear, if they want to learn how to internet sleuth their latest date, or if they want to have a coffee and tell you how much they love redheads, where can they find you?
Okay, so my business account is Suck It Up Fitness, and that's Instagram, Facebook, like all the socials is all Suck It Up Fitness. The website is suckitupfitnessapparel.com. And then my like normal Jen stuff is it's Da Beers. It's DAABEERS, and that's on all socials as well. So
do you want to explain why that's your socials so that people get it?
Right. Yes, I probably should. Okay. So my last name is De Beers, and there's an SNL skit back from, I guess it was the late 90s, early 2000s.
I think so.
And it was Da Bears, Da Bears, Da Bears. And so all of my friends started calling me Da Beers because of my last name. So then I just kind of took it and ran with it. So that is the reason.
I love it. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate how open you were about sharing your experience and also all of the tips that you gave to people so that they can make sure that they are staying safe as well. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. This was fun.
Yay.
I really hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Jen as much as I did. I truly appreciate that even after everything she's been through, she's still not jaded. She's out there looking for the love that she deserves. So remember, until next week, you are strong enough and you are worth it.